think I'm that mysterious of a person, so. Well, I guess I could just try to answer them all honestly if you want. Whatever you want.
If you want to use that as the icebreaker.
Yeah. Okay.
That's great. We'll use that as the icebreaker.
Yeah. Let's just pretend I've never read any of these questions. You're asking me them all for the first time.
That's great. And then we'll finish off with, you had mentioned in the last meeting about ChristianMingle being perceived as overly religious.
Uh-huh.
And so we wanted to ask the question, who is ChristianMingle built for? Do you have to be an uber Christian to join? And so that's our attempt to say, no, like, we're inclusive and cool people are in ChristianMingle.
Okay. Yeah. So that's gonna be the last one though.
Yeah, if that doesn't ring true for you.
No, I'll just spout my mouth off. Sometimes I say too many things, and maybe afterwards I'll be like, take that off, or you won't use it.
That's what editing is.
Yeah, that's why I love camera stuff instead of live.
Yeah.
Oh, this is live.
Yeah. It's just a feed to a couple mil.
Okay, I'm actually ready. If you want to start, do you want to have any issues?
And do you want me to look like directly like I'm talking to the camera or talking to an interviewer?
I think look like you're talking to. Is there any way that I want the final? I mean, to me.
I trust your judgment. You've been doing this.
Why don't you have it like you're talking to Courtney?
Okay. Great.
Yeah,
But she's asking you questions.
Yeah.
So.
Introduce yourself, and then I'll start asking you questions.
Okay. How much of it? Just my name?
Your name, favorite color, and where you live.
Oh, okay. My name is Joy Eggerichs. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I would say my favorite color growing up was pink, and my father called me Pinky. And that's now my Skype name, Pinky Joy, and I cannot change it. So it's really helpful for business transactions.
That's so great. So Joy, how do you mean mystery and the chase as a woman without being too difficult in a relationship?
How to retain mystery. I don't think I'm that mysterious of a person. I mean, there's things I keep private, hopefully with tact, but I don't know. I think that seems a little old-fashioned to remain so mysterious. I think, especially before going out on a date, I think it's really important to try to give yourself a pump-up talk about just being yourself. And I think sometimes people who try to play games, that's ultimately going to result either in a relationship that's built on game playing or a relationship that's not going to go anywhere because you're a game player. I guess that would be my answer.
It's great, thank you.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
That was perfect, and it's probably perfect as it is, but if it's possible, if you can incorporate the question into the answer.
Okay.
So,
I'll do
for
that.
example, like she asked you about being mysterious, to say like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know if being mysterious to incorporate what she asked into the response.
Gotcha. Okay. We can do it again.
No, I mean.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
That was a really good practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
We may actually use that because that was a good answer.
Okay.
What's the sound in the hallway?
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that.
Okay. Another question, Joy.
Yes.
What are some key questions or topics you should discuss or not discuss on a first date?
Politics and sex. No. Questions to discuss or not discuss on a date. I think something that people should work on is how to ask questions. I think we live in a culture where people are so comfortable putting out on social media what they're doing, what they're feeling. And so many people are so hungry to be asked questions that oftentimes it can be, they're more comfortable talking about themselves. Now, there are some people like myself who figured out how to ask people questions, so much so to the point where they never had to open up about themselves. So if that's you, I would say take a breather and try to make it a balance. But I feel like the more you can ask questions that are beyond what's your favorite color, I think it's easier to get to know somebody quicker. And if you ask questions that are of any type of depth and somebody doesn't want to answer them, and you're someone that wants to go deep, then that might be telling of what their personality is quicker on. I think one of the mistakes that people fall into is not asking each other questions. And then they're engaged and they find out, well, one of them wanted to have kids and the other didn't. Now again, have a little bit of tact. I don't know if on your first date you want to say how many children do you want to have, but I think there's ways to call out the obvious. You're on a date. You're trying to find someone who you may end up with. And so it's okay to ask serious questions, but try to keep the tone lighthearted.
So here's another question. We have been on several dates, but I am unsure where the relationship is going. Should I initiate a DTR? How do I ask him without chasing him away or seeming demanding?
So for women who are asking, where is this relationship going, and don't know how to bring it up, I think a lot of times, sometimes within the Christian community, we talk about men being the spiritual leaders, but I would even argue that outside of the Christian community, women feel loved when a man kind of states where this is going or how they feel. We want to not acknowledge that, but it's true. You feel taken care of if someone initiates their feelings. So I would challenge guys, if you have thoughts on where this relationship is going, share them. But if you're a woman and you feel like they're not sharing it, maybe it's because they don't want to freak you out. Maybe the last relationship they were in, the second date in, they were like, I'm going to marry you. And she was like, peace out. So now they're wanting to be really careful and just take their time. So I think it's important to be prayerful and discerning of going, is this someone who's just wanting to build a friendship? Because so many men say that's the number one thing they're looking for in a wife is a friend. And so they might just be slower moving. Or are you discerning that this is someone who's going on dates with a bunch of other women? They're never going to be honest with you. There's differences of why a man might not be saying where the relationship is going. But if you sense like, I'm losing my peace, and I really want to know where this relationship is going, I think it's you have every right and responsibility for your own heart to bring that up. Now, how to do that? I think instead of, I've spoken with several women who start to get angry or resent the guy they're dating because he hasn't told them what's going on or where they're going. I would suggest not approaching them like that. But rather assuming the best about that person, assuming that they really are trying to build that friendship. And so using language of, I have really enjoyed spending time with you, and I know that we live in a day and age where relationships can be really ambiguous, and I just want you to know on my end I'm having a wonderful time, and I would love if there could be some clarity for me. If you could take some time and kind of think about how you're feeling about this, you voicing that, you might be thinking things, but I would love to actually vocally hear from you how you're feeling about this and maybe even where you see it going. And so not demanding that they tell you right away or having an attitude, but assuming that they are a thoughtful person, they are thinking about it, but they just didn't realize that you wanted to hear it vocalized.
Great, thank you. What is the importance of and how can we find a marriage, or how can somebody find a marriage or relationship mentor?
I think the importance of finding a mentor and how to find a mentor, I've talked about it for several years of the importance of seeking older, wiser counsel. I've also heard back from a lot of people in my generation that it's hard to find a mentor. And then I've spoken to a lot of older, wiser counsel who feels ill-equipped to be a mentor. And so I think sometimes we need to maybe take it down a notch of the severity. I'm totally stealing what this guy said earlier today. Is that okay? Okay. The severity of the word mentor, and really just find someone that you respect or you admire and ask them to get coffee or to hang out or pick their brain. And because I think sometimes mentors feel like they have to be so prepared, that they have to be this seasoned, wise expert. But really, if you learn how to ask somebody questions, they're honored by that. And so I think finding someone who say, I admire their relationship with the Lord, or I admire their marriage. I'm going to pick their brain. See yourself as a student. And so then by default, they become a mentor. But I definitely think that it's so important, especially during the years where you're unmarried, and then even more so once you become married, to keep seeking out counsel and ultimately living your relationships in the light. I do think there's so many things for married people, but for when you're unmarried, it's very easy to be very private. And then, if you don't let your friends and family into your relationships, then they can't speak to something that they might see that you don't, because love is blind. And so there's freedom. People will say, well, I don't want to introduce them to my parents or, this older couple in my church because they just ask so many questions and it gets so annoying. And I'm like, is that more annoying than a divorce lawyer someday? So there's freedom, even though it might be annoying to have a lot of people ask you questions or get up in your business.
That's great. What are some
Before you answer, I'm just getting a little jangled.
I know. Do you want me to take these off? I was kind of trying to like not.
I don't think you need to. I mean, is there a way?
Here, I can. There.
You're doing a little hand. It's all gray.
I know. It's my lot in life is my
She's so
bangles.
expressive.
There we go.
Great.
See, look at that. I positioned them all. Do you want me to re-answer something?
No.
Your answers are great, by the way. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cut me off if I'm.
I'm
if you want
smiling
me.
'cause I'm like, yeah, that's
Okay.
great.
Okay.
That's great.
My mother would tell me to sit up more straight. Sorry, Mom. Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some important things someone can do to prepare for marriage during their single years?
I think there's a lot of important things that you can do during your unmarried days to prepare for marriage. I think sometimes it can become discouraging when you're trying to prepare and relationships aren't working out, and so you kind of want to put your head in the sand and stop. But I often tell people, there's not much in God's Word about how you're supposed to live as an unmarried person. There's instructions for married people, but we can't expect that the day we become married, we're all of a sudden just going to dive into that. Just as you wouldn't want a surgeon who was holding a textbook to perform surgery on you, that you'd want them to go to med school first. So I think there's great benefit in enriching yourself as a person, but also learning about marriage from reading marriage books or going to marriage conferences. There can be such a stigma of like, I can't go to a marriage conference, I'm not married, But it's like, well, if you want to be someday, or maybe you won't ever get married, but maybe the Lord wants you to encourage your married friends. And so it's really important to know what God's Word says about marriage. So, I think, is that, you said what can you do? Books, conferences, read God's Word, learn from other married couples. Okay.
On to more promotional ones. What makes cross paths unique from other dating apps?
I think cross paths seems unique because I feel like it's going to add that element of getting to know somebody's faith and hopefully have less of a fear factor. I think one of the things with other dating sites, if you don't know anybody who knows that person, and so it sounds like cross paths is, maybe I shouldn't say this, is going into churches. So
No,
you're not doing, okay.
Not yet.
Okay, so I'll just keep this more simple. I think the uniqueness of cross paths is that it does add that element of what your faith is. And I think that's something that can be difficult on just a regular dating site to be like, I love Jesus with all my heart. You don't necessarily yell that when you go into the grocery store, so why would you yell that on your website? But this is going, hey, we're building that in for you. There's an assumption that people using this site have same or similar values, and it opens up the dialogue to talk about that more.
Perfect.
Maybe just take off the bottom one.
Okay, this one?
That's the one.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, that was a lot of seconds. Let's try to do that. Okay.
Not dramatic at all.
Yeah.
Then the final one. Who is Christian Mingle built for? Do you have to be an uber Christian to join Christian Mingle?
Do you have to be an uber Christian to join Christian Mingle? Well, I think, that's a funny word to put with it. I think there is a lot of stigmas around types of Christians, and I guess I would encourage people, if you have a Christian faith of any kind, to not put people in categories of what an uber Christian is versus what an uber Christian is not. Because you dress like a hipster, are you not an uber Christian? Because you go to prayer service on Wednesday night, does that make you an uber Christian? Because you're super legalistic. I mean, only God knows our heart and our desire to love Him and serve Him. And I think that's going to look different for different people. There's a lot of people that go to church 7 nights a week and truly do not love and reverence Christ, but they might be defined as an uber Christian. And so I think to be really careful about when you are on a Christian website to assume that just because someone looks some way or says something, that their heart is a certain way. And I think it's exciting to be on a dating site where you can actually practice discernment and wisdom to try to find someone who might not look like what you think the type of Christian you want to be with is, but get to know their actual heart.
Fantastic.
That work?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Yep. Great.
Thank you so
Hold
much.
on.
Oh, yep.
Let's not forget your bracelet.
Yes. The dramatic throw.